So we've become pretty open when it comes to talking about things like gender and racism, but what about class? What happens if we don't talk about poverty firsthand? Deborah Dundas is starting the conversation in On Class. It's the latest in the Field Notes series from the publisher Biblioasis, and she joins me now. And you come from this from a very personal spot.
I do. First, thank you for having me on. Thanks for being interested in this subject. It's one that people are being more and more interested in and talking about more and more, which is great. And I'm really glad to be able to be part of the conversation and helping to keep it going. My own experience, I grew up poor. I didn't think I was going to go to university. I didn't know what opportunities were open to me. You know, we were evicted from housing. There was no childcare, so I looked after my younger brother. So all of the issues that go along with poverty that we're still hearing about today have been going on for decades and decades and decades.
Mm-hmm. And you said you kind of had a light bulb moment at a cocktail party.
That's right.
In your job, you're the books editor now for the Toronto Star, as well as being a writer. And you were at a cocktail party and realized, I do not have the same lived experience as a lot of your peers.
Do you know, we go and we talk to people, and one woman started talking about back to school shopping, and then the conversation turned to the things that we had when we were kids. You know, so people were talking about Laurentian pencil crayons and backpacks, and all of that stuff was stuff I wanted, but we could never afford to have. So when I have those conversations, they're not about nostalgia with a warm, fuzzy sense. They're about nostalgia that has longing attached to it and want attached to it.
Right. And yet so often, like, were you right away, like, you found somebody else at that cocktail party that kind of had the same experience? Is that?
Yeah, do you know what? I thought I wasn't going to talk about my experience. And then I thought, you know what? I'm working on this project. I'm going to talk about it. And I opened it up, and everybody wanted to talk about it. One person said, oh, well, that's the one ism we can't talk about, right? And we don't talk about, we need to talk about it. Another one says, oh, thank goodness you brought that up. And then a conversation began, and that was really shared experience,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Because there's really kind of so much shame in admitting that you're in poverty, that you've come from it, because the stigma kind of is like, well, you should make your own way. And sometimes you just can't.
Do you know, the idea is that the system is set up for success, but it's not. The system is set up with all sorts of barriers. So if you don't make it, you're right, you know, that's your own darn fault. But what about access to education, childcare, housing, all of these things that we're seeing now?
Proper nutrition.
Proper nutrition. We're seeing increased inequality. That's the system not working. That's not a system working and offering opportunity. That's a system that's denying opportunity. You know, so those sorts of things have to be changed. But unless the policymakers and those in power understand the nitty-gritty day-to-day of the kinds of life choices people are being forced to make because of these decisions, then they're not going to be able to see. And so I think having this conversation and being able to relate on a human level, you know, as individuals, I think that really needs to happen. It'll go a long way to actually, you know, making us understand each other.
And I mean, we found a little bit of this came to the surface during the pandemic, where, you know, the frontline workers, largely women, largely grossly underpaid for the work that they do. We celebrated them. We went out and banged pots and pans, and we lined streets and gave them hero pay.
Absolutely.
And then it disappeared.
And then we took it away.
Yeah.
So if these are the people who are making our lives and their own lives, of making everybody's lives actually livable in such a terrible time, they're essential. And if they're essential, why are they having to struggle? Why are their kids not able to have access to, you know, the internet and computers so that they can access, you know, remote education? All of these things. Why are they dying at greater numbers? And I'm saying they, but what I'm trying to do is break down that us and them barrier, right? It's us. If we're banging on our pots and pans saying we're all in this together, thank you, then we are all in this together. So we have to kind of put our money where our mouth is, I think.
Right. All great topics. It's by far, you know, not the definitive on class, but it's a great conversation starter and a really necessary read for a lot of people. On Class by Deborah Dundas. Again, it's part of the Field Notes from Biblioasis, available everywhere you get books. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.